Kelly O'Bannon is here to present Grad Slam 301, and this is focused on public speaking and delivery. And so I'm going to pass the mic to Kelly.
Hi, thank you. Hi, everybody. Congratulations on your work and getting this far. And I'm really looking forward to talking about this. This is something that I love. I love public speaking, and I love great delivery, something that I hold near and dear to my heart. So hopefully we can give you some strategies today to help you be really successful in your talk. And I kind of wanted to start with, when you think about what makes a great presentation, what comes to mind? What are the different characteristics? Maybe it's their confidence or their style or the way their words flow out of their mouth. Possibly it has to do with really great content. And really, all of these things are really important elements that we want to bring to the table as speakers. And so today, I want to talk to you a little bit about delivery in two aspects. I want to talk to you about some Zoom preparation for delivery, and then sort of you and before delivery, what can happen. And it's kind of weird to start with Zoom delivery, but this is important things that we need to think about, especially because we're not in person. If we were in person, this would be an entirely different presentation for me, that is for sure. And we've all been on Zoom for a while, and we've been doing it for a little bit. But as I come here today and I see all of these screens off, I think we need to make sure we're thoughtful and careful about what happens in our appearance in terms of Zoom. So I wanted to bring a couple of things for you to think about. One of them is your background. I was doing some research working with a grant, and we were doing some assessment, and I was evaluating professional business presentations. And I had this student that I was evaluating who was sitting in an office or sitting somewhere, and behind them were rows and rows and rows of liquor. I would say maybe, I don't know, 200 bottles. It was the most liquor I've ever seen in my life that wasn't in a restaurant. And here is this student giving a professional presentation, dressed nicely, looked so wonderful, was really trying to sell their idea with hundreds of bottles of liquor behind them. And their presentation was not about liquor. So I just want you to be mindful as you're presenting these speeches to think about your background. I know it's a minimal thing, but it is a thought nonetheless. So as you can see, my background is blurred behind me. I could unblur it, but it's a little bit of a distraction. And so I'm going to choose to blur it so it's a little bit more professional. If you're going to choose to put a picture behind you, you may want to put just a solid color or something very simple, so that way the focus is on you. That's your goal. You want the focus for people's eyes to draw to you and not towards what's behind you on your screen. The second thing I wanted to mention to you was about camera angle, which I know is kind of another silly element. But I spent actually quite a while, few hours, watching all of these different grad slams. I watched the CSU and the larger competitions, and I noticed that some people had some very interesting and eclectic ways to sort of present their speeches. When you're thinking about your camera angle, you need to make sure that your eyes are going to match where the camera goes. So I would discourage you from giving your presentation where you're looking down on people. Okay, this actually is a power play. There's a lot of psychology to this. When you're looking down on someone, it's a sense of power, of dominance, and it's much less receptive, and it's not quite as friendly to people. So I would discourage you from that. And I would be thoughtful about making sure that your eyes are sort of matching where your camera is going to be. And this presents a little bit of a different issue too, because you have to think about your notes. I watched, again, hours of videos, and I know I'm a professional in this perspective, but I could tell which students were reading, and there were students who were reading. You could see their eyes kind of following across the screen. And it wasn't as dramatic as that, but it was definitely noticeable. And if I'm a judge and I'm scoring you, I think to myself, this is your research, this is your passion. You certainly should not have to read this to me. This should come from you. And the people who were the winners in both of these rounds were so wonderful at making their information relatable, having that kind of that lay audience experience. You could know nothing about it, but feel like you learned so much about it. That's because they were able to talk to you. They were able to engage you, even on Zoom. So I really encourage you to be thoughtful about your notes. I would recommend not pulling your notes up on your screen in front of you. Maybe you could possibly have a few little post-it notes with a couple of ideas on there that you know that you need to hit, but the rest of it really needs to come from you. If you want to engage the audience on Zoom, you can't read to us. I always tell my students, this is public speaking, not public reading. And so you don't want to kind of lose your personality in that process. You also want to think about lighting in your microphone. This is when you test beforehand. And I'm so glad to hear as I popped in today that you are going to have some dry run for students where they're able to try things out. That's really important. Make sure when you're in your dry run, you're going to be in the location you're going to present in. You want to simulate as best as possible the circumstances you're going to be facing when you're giving this presentation. So try to be in the same room, in the same place, the same computer, so that way you can test the lighting and the microphone and make sure all of those elements will come into play and give you a seamless delivery. The idea is you don't want to have to sweat those small mechanical issues come presentation day. You're going to have enough stress under your belt, no need to add more to your plate and make your life harder. And my last thought about this whole kind of Zoom delivery is about your appearance. I definitely want to encourage you to dress professionally. This is a professional presentation. You are a grad student. You want to be thoughtful about how you are dressed, what you're wearing, and make sure that you kind of look the part. You're trying to command the audience's attention, trying to gain their respect with your research. And if you look nice, it just puts it in a nice package for yourself. So those are some things I want you to kind of think about as you're heading into sort of this Zoom environment.
So I have, I think, 2 microphones. One of them is connected to like a headset. So here, I'll turn on my it would be like, headphones, and I'll have a microphone coming out of that. Is that acceptable, or should I aim to do something else about that?
And it's honestly, it seemed to be they weren't too thrown off. I mean, unfortunately, Zoom really puts us in a pickle and you only have so many devices, and we understand that students are limited. Headsets tend to be bulky and distracting, but they also make you look unprofessional. Unless you're presenting on game theory, then you're looking the part, you're looking really great, right? But if you're presenting on something in biology, microbiology concept, it might be a little bit more of a distraction. So you might want to aim for something else if it's an option. If it's not an option, that's okay. You can definitely work with that, but I would probably consider an alternative just to make sure that you're fully looking the part.
Okay, and then a follow up to that. So the other one I have that I think is quality, because right now I'm speaking through a laptop. It's kind of like it's where my fist is, kind of thing, where it's like more of a not professional, but like higher quality microphone, like a Twitch streamer might use.
Yeah, those are wonderful options. You honestly sound perfectly clear right now, but yeah, you sound actually like deep. There's like a good bravado in your voice. So that's perfectly fine. But those microphones are very nice and professional. I think that that's really good. I will say though, if you were in your room right now to where you were, because you have backlight behind you, you are a dark shadow and the light behind you is really bright. So we definitely want to try to avoid that, because it's harder to connect with you because, we can see less of your facial features because of the light.
What microphone are you using?
I'm actually using my laptop microphone. It's just straight from the laptop. Yeah, but it's a pretty new computer, so I don't think it's too bad. I do have a more official kind of, I can't get it because it's attached, but I still have a more official microphone that I use sometimes, but this is a brand new laptop. I didn't want it to glitch on me, so I decided not to mess with it today. So definitely whatever you're going to pick, you should try it out. And this dry run, again, all your equipment, your Zoom, everything should be just like it is on speech day. And especially that way, if you've got Martha and Dr. Fowler who could say to you, oh, it was hard to hear you, and that way you can adjust if you need to adjust.
The great thing about the rehearsal is it's also going to be via Zoom. And so everyone that's part of that, you're going to get feedback from that subcommittee on some of the things we're discussing right now. So, that would be a good time to test out your camera angle, your background, your lighting, all of those things, because you can get feedback from that committee on, hey, I noticed this, or I noticed that, because Kelly brings up some really good points. And Kelly, you weren't here earlier. And Dr. Vega touched on this, but we were just talking about the different dynamics of either being in person versus Zoom, because I still struggle with that. I find myself, looking at the person I'm talking to in the Zoom meeting, and they may be down at the bottom right corner. And so everybody sees me, doing this when I'm talking, and just reminding myself to look at the camera sometimes, even though we've been doing this for a few years now because of COVID. We have to remind ourselves, okay, yeah, look at the camera, when you're speaking and things like that. So I'm glad that we touched on that.
Yeah, what's something else too is that you're right. When especially when I'm teaching and when I was on Zoom, I would have all these screens up and I was looking at all the boxes, but you're not gonna be able to see your audience, right? You're presenting kind of just to this sort of open forum of people. You want to kind of keep your window of your camera angle pretty narrow. So, I mean, I would say, if I'm measuring right now, I'd say maybe kind of 2 or 3 inches around your camera. And if you can sort of look 2 or 3 inches around your camera, it looks like you're scanning the audience. Because on the camera, it makes your eyes look like, oh, I'm looking at you and I'm looking at you and I'm looking at you. But I'm not, just deathly staring into the camera either, right? This is where you get that kind of creepy vibe where it feels a little unnatural and forced. So you don't want to, deer in the headlights stare, but you want to keep your window of where you look really short and kind of circular around your camera. That's sort of a simple technique if you don't have to engage with the audience or answer questions.
I noticed that many of those presentations I've seen on Zoom, the people use gestures, they pace themselves, they enunciate some words better. Can you give us like techniques on how, that can be used to be persuasive? Because the people who win are the ones who look very animated, and even yourself, I noticed all of a sudden you were doing the gestures and things like that, right?
Yeah, you know what, it's like you were a plant and like you were meant to say that, because that's what I want to talk about. So I want to get to the second piece, which is really your delivery, right? What your body's going to be doing, what your voice is going to be doing. I based this information off of the requirements for what you're being graded on. You're being evaluated on your pace. That's one of the elements it lists in the delivery requirements. And so for pace, I want you to think about making sure that you are not going too quickly. That's probably the number one sin a lot of people make when they're nervous, is they just speak at such a quick pace. And the information comes out so quickly that people can't digest it. There's not enough time to be able to process or think about it. It just kind of flies all at us. And I was watching the overall Western Association Grad Slam, and there was a gentleman. He was actually the first speaker, and he was a wonderful speaker, had really great voice inflections, wonderful body language and hand gestures. He was talking a mile a minute. There was hardly even a pause. I thought to myself, that's probably why he didn't win, right? If I'm not looking at content, I'm just looking at just a delivery. It's just because the information can come so quickly, it can be overwhelming. So what I say to you in terms of pacing is, you want to make sure that you enunciate your words. It's okay to pause for a second. I paused just a second ago for a millisecond. I didn't throw all of the information out all at once. And so if you can find that kind of natural pace, it feels like it comes from you, you'll have better success. And really, a lot of pace happens in your preparation. So if you write out your entire presentation and you memorize it word for word, you're going to regurgitate it. And when you regurgitate it, you're going to sound like a robot. It comes out very memorized, very methodical, and you lose your personality. Not always, it's not all the time, but it is a lot of the time that happens. And so when you slip away from the presentation, people are less connected to you. And because they're less connected to you in your material, you might be less likely to win. So I want you to consider thinking about having a natural pace, having some pause in there. Know you're going to be nervous. Practice giving your speech in a nice flow, and make sure it's not too consistent, because that consistency signals one of two things. It signals I'm reading it, or I've memorized all of it and I'm a robot. And those are the two things you don't want to be associated with. So allow yourself the ability to learn the concepts, learn the ideas, learn the information and then let it come from you. And that means, again, practicing, practicing, and practicing. So that's pace. That's what I would recommend on pace. And of course, make sure you time yourself. Oh my gosh, time yourself. When you're practicing, time yourself. In fact, what you should be doing before your official Zoom practice, you should hop onto Zoom yourself. You should put yourself up on the screen, and you should put your phone up, prop it up, press time, and talk to yourself and watch yourself. It's disturbing as all get out. You're going to be bothered looking at yourself, but it's very telling. You can watch it back. You can even record it on Zoom and watch yourself. Those are some really great features that Zoom has to offer. So I'd recommend that highly to you to practice so you can kind of find that sort of natural pace. The second quality it lists in that delivery, or one of the qualities it lists, is having the dynamic voice. And voice comes through voice inflections, and voice inflections represent our emotions. If you do not have voice inflections and you hit a monotone voice the entire time, then every word feels and sounds the same, which means that the audience has to determine which words are more important than others. And we get bored. We don't want to do work. We want to sit back, listen, and enjoy what you have to say. And if we have to do more work on our end, we're going to be less inclined to feel interested in what you have to say. So consider voice inflections, accents. You're picking certain words to highlight over others. You determine the meaning. This is your research. Okay. Did you hear I emphasize you and your? I want you to hear those words because those are the most important words in that sentence. I'm going to pick the meaning for you, and I'm going to choose to interpret it. So if voice inflections aren't your natural jam, you don't do that very well, maybe in your presentation when you're practicing, you can kind of just go and maybe highlight certain keywords that you feel are really important and place emphasis on those words. It's a way to kind of practice voice inflections if they don't naturally come from you. But you definitely want to have certain words emphasized more than others. And I tell my students all the time, I said, you gotta be in it to win it on presentation day. You have to enjoy this. This is the most important and best experience we're gonna have. I can't wait to be here, and I'm so excited. If I turned on my screen and came to this presentation, I went, hi, I'm so excited to be here today. I can't wait to hear everything everyone has to say. That's not what you're here to see. That's not what you want to learn. That's not going to help you. So you want to make sure that your voice is matching your excitement. This is a wonderful opportunity. And I know that most of you are so excited and happy to be here. So you want to convey that to the audience. So those voice inflections are a way to do that. The good thing about Zoom is you don't have to worry too much about voice projection because it's pretty easy to be heard on Zoom. So as long as you're not whispering, you should pretty much be fine. I always tell people, if you have any kind of microphones, make sure you don't put your mouth right on the microphone like you're in the drive-thru of McDonald's. Oh, I've got it. You know, when people are talking, you want to hold the microphone out a little bit and make sure you're still projecting your voice. But definitely voice inflections are one of the most important elements to your presentation. They're going to make you stand out, and that's really, really important. Body language is on that list of things you're going to be looking at. So a little bit of kind of Zoom etiquette. You want to maybe have like a chest up. You don't want your camera to be where you can only see your head because it's cutting off part of your experience for your audience. If you think about what pulls people in, if we were live in person, the two things that connects your audience are eye contact and movement. And if you do those two things, people generally pay attention. We're on Zoom. You don't move, you've cut that element out. So you have hand gestures, right? And we're not, flagging in planes. I'm not crazy flying around, but hand gestures are accents to what you have to say. And if you are not a visual person, you're not going to even notice the hand gestures. But any of your judges are visual people. That's going to be the simulation that they need to be able to say, this is what I get. I understand this better now. So again, I go back to put yourself on Zoom, record yourself, watch yourself, try some hand gestures, say, this is placed here or this is placed here, or we placed a deep cut, offering those kind of little accents will give a little finishing touch to your speech and allow those visual learners to be connected to your material. We don't need to be dramatic, but we definitely want to have them. So make sure that you're able to kind of be seen. My last thing on there that I talked about for delivery was confidence. And this is something I want to try today. Now I can't see you, so I'm going to, in good faith, assuming that you're doing this right now. But a lot of confidence comes through breathing. If we can control our breathing, we can control a lot of our anxiety, apprehension, or nervousness, and really give a better speech. So you're going to do this with me. Hopefully you're here and you're doing it. You're just doing it. You're going to put your hand on your chest. I want you to put your hand on your chest. I want you to take 3 breaths as fast as you can. So if you felt that your breath was really shallow, basically kind of like the top half of your body was going in and out. And when you have quick breathing, your heart rate increases, your voice is cut off because you're cutting off the oxygen to your throat. That increases your anxiety, your stress levels, and all of these bad things start to happen to you. But if you try yawning, so you're going to yawn right now. I'll cover my mouth because it's kind of obnoxious to suck into the camera and yawn, but I want you to give me a yawn. Let's see it. Okay, if you actually yawned, you probably felt your entire stomach expand. That is diaphragm breathing. And if you can tap into these bigger breaths in your body, you can better regulate your heart, you can better regulate your panic and your anxiety, and you can better control your pace. So try not to do those quick, shallow breaths. They can cause some problems for you. And try to lean into some of those kind of bigger, more natural breaths. They help out tremendously. And then I also wanted to mention this too. There are kind of 2 schools of thought about how to handle anxiety. And again, anxiety is very much associated to confidence and being confident. And there was a recent study by Brooks at Harvard Business School. She looked at 140 students and she had them give a 3-minute, I think they got paid like 10 cents or something like that. They were paid to give a presentation. And they were both given, they had different control groups giving them different pre-performance setups. So they told one group, we want you to calm down, say, I am calm, I am calm, I am calm. They took one group and they said, we want you to say, I'm excited. I want you to practice this mantra. I'm excited, I can't wait, I'm excited. And they had one group and we said, you just do, you do whatever you want, don't say anything. And what they found after these 140 presentations were that the people who said, I'm excited, actually did better and performed better on their presentations. And there's some really interesting research as to why this is. That's because anxiety and excitement and stress is highly correlated with excitement. Those are actually very similar emotions, similar chemical body responses. What's different is the negative or positive association. So you could almost kind of trick your body into being excited if you convince yourself to be excited. So I don't like to tell students which ones they should do, what's the best way to do it. I think you know yourself the best. Sometimes if you feel like you're going to be overly excited, you should tell yourself to calm down. Or maybe you try leaning into the excitement and get yourself pumped up. There's kind of 2 ways to do it, but certainly those are ways to hopefully help you think about how maybe you could handle this and come with confidence.
I was laughing when you did your McDonald's imitation. What did you say about the use of humor? Is that a recommender or not?
Well, these are pretty professional. I honestly didn't see any humor in the many hours that I watched these. They were kind of pretty, pretty straightforward. But what I did like and what I saw is that you could tell the people who loved their research. I don't know if any of the students have access to them or watch the videos, but the regional kind of overall winners from WAGs, wherever that was, the winner's name was Dalton Miller. And he talked like a love. It just kind of came from him really natural. He had voice inflections and it was really easy to understand. but you could tell that he enjoyed it. You felt his enjoyment. And there were other ones that were really good. Some of them were a little too fast. They seemed kind of rushed and a little too excited. He was just like, hey, this is what we figured out. And this is what I love. And it was kind of like he sort of sucked you into his world. I'm guessing that's why he won. That would be, I wasn't a judge, but that would be my guess. So yeah.
That's a great analysis, Kelly, because as a professor who's worked with a lot of students who have went through the thesis or dissertation process, you know, I often and think about those students that seem to not be as stressed during the process. And it's because they've really found something they're very passionate about and interested in. And it's not something they have to do, it's something they want to do, you know? And so, you know, we had this talk recently at our graduate summit about really, you know, figuring out what you're passionate about and following that. And we shared that quote, you know, you'll never work a day in your life if you do if you're doing stuff you're passionate about. But it really relates to this, you know, it comes across, you know, you can't really fake it. And so, you know, I've been in a lot of dissertation proposal defenses where I just got the feeling like the student really isn't passionate about this, but they just kind of were trying to find something to do. And so it's going to show. At the very least, fake it if you're not really passionate about, you know. So.
Oh, hey, I'm all for that. Listen, fake it till you make it, right? You know, you have all these great competitors. You've ever watched a sporting event, you know, soccer or basketball, football, whatever it is. These athletes, they have bad days. When they come on the court of the field, they don't go, yeah, okay, I'm ready. No, they come out like champions, right? They're selling it because they know that if they come out and show their weaknesses, they're going to be taken advantage of. And not that anyone's taking advantage of you here, but people can sense that. And so it's really important to come out with that attitude, even if you're not feeling it that day. And Rudy asked a question in the chat and asked, is controlled and calmed breathing related to the concept of better enunciation? Absolutely. So if you can control your breath, then you can better enunciate your words. When your breath is shallow and quick, your words are quick and your pace is faster. And that causes often a lot of panic for people. So if you can just find your natural rhythm, it helps tremendously. And know that everyone's rhythm is different. I have a quick pace. I'm a fast talker. It's just who I am. And this is a pretty slow pace for me today because I'm on Zoom. And that sometimes through cameras and microphones, it takes a little bit of time. There's a lag time. For the most part, I'm in it to win it. That's just who I am. And so there might be a more casual pace of somebody, but it's your natural pace. I think that's really important, is that if I tried to go really, really slow, that wouldn't be me. But I also know that I kind of can't go too fast as well. So you've got to kind of try and find that balance.
I just want to take a moment and thank Kelly O'Bannon for coming and presenting for Grad Slam 301, focusing on public speaking and delivery. Let's give Kelly a round of applause.
And I just wanted to mention too, if anybody has any particular needs that's individual to you and you wanted any extra advice, you can feel free to email me. Martha can connect you to me and I'm happy to help you if you have any, you know, specific personal issues you didn't want to bring up today.
Just a friendly reminder that the application for the Grad Slam is now up, but it's at the Graduate Student Center website here at CSUB. Again, thank you so much, and we look forward to receiving your application.
Bye, everybody.